All right, we are live. Hello there, Brent Fikowski. This is the Ask Me Anything. I was having some internet drama, and so I'm sponging some Wi-Fi here off a cafe, but it should work well. So what I'm going to do is I have a bunch of questions from a couple different platforms. If any more come in here on YouTube, I'm going to try and answer those just so it kind of looks like I'm actually interacting. But these are all questions that I've sort of found from a couple different platforms. I'll answer the one here that's on the top of the chat. So on YouTube here, it says, what changed for you from the Atlas Games to the CrossFit Games final? What was the biggest reason for your success at the Games? How long do you think you can or want to still compete at the very top? So what changed? Honestly, nothing changed. I felt I was in pretty much the exact same shape between the two events. Honestly, I think, I've always sort of struggled relative to my peers in online competitions relative to my performance against my peers in-person live competitions. Some of that is undoubtedly the programming, right? So, there's no running and there's no odd objects and stuff online. I think some of it's that, and, there's longer events, whatever, more workouts over the weekend. Other than that, you'd have to ask the other competitors because I feel like I perform, right to my max in both situations. And, for whatever reason, I'm finishing lower online than I am in person. I think it's a better question for people that seem to finish higher online and lower in person, and maybe try to figure out what's keeping them from performing at that same level. So I guess as a competitor, I hope they don't figure that out. But I really feel like I brought pretty much the same package to the table. The one difference being, programming, which is obviously the number of workouts, the duration of the workouts, the types of workouts, all those things. But it's kind of the main thing. So let's see. I'm going to dive into a few questions here that I can kind of rapid fire to get myself in a rhythm, and then I'm going to respond to some comments here. Okay, how often do you do zone 2 cardio? So that's a heart rate zone, and the purpose of doing zone 2 is to increase your ability at a lower heart rate, and then sort of eventually increase your ability at the higher heart rates. You have to kind of start low and build that base to go higher. And if you want to do that in your training, there's ways you can Google it, how to find my heart rate zones, and then training for a extended period in that lower heart rate zone, which for CrossFitters we don't do a lot of because a lot of the stuff is so intense. 5 to 15 minutes and go. Your heart rate's going to be jacked the whole time. There's definitely value to that. As far as how much do I do it, does it really matter to you guys? It's it's somewhere between 20 minutes to 3 hours a week. It kind of just depends on the week, depending on my training goals. I would say if one of your training goals is to get more fit, if you find that you get too tired, for a lot of CrossFitters, their goal is going to be very strength related and skill acquisition of gymnastic skills. And so zone 2 cardio is going to be pretty low on the list of priorities, right? You're going to be doing some WODs, and then you're going to be acquiring skills, acquiring strength, and the zone 2 thing just isn't going to be part of that equation, really. But, look into that. And if, probably the biggest mistake I see people make is switching machines. So if the whole point is to just ideally get your heart rate, let's say your zone 2 heart rate's 130 beats per minute. You want that heart rate to be 130 beats per minute, just steady, whether that's 15 minutes to 60 minutes, just steady. And if you jump between machines or, I'm going to do some burpees and some rowing, you're not going to stay at 130. So you just need to sit on a rower, embrace the boring, and just try and hold the same heart rate, which will equate to about the same pace. In off season, do you think it is reasonable to cut out brutal, intense metcons and focus just on strength and endurance? Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think, traditional CrossFit, like what we see in the CrossFit Open and most competitions, you're going usually anywhere from 2 minutes to maybe 20 minutes, and it's intense, it's fast, it's high impact, it's kipping gymnastics, ring muscle ups, chest to bars, toes to bar, and then touch and go barbell. Those are kind of pretty classic. If you're good at those things, you're going to do well in CrossFit competitions, and that's what they define as fitness and what I'm doing. In order to get good at that, there's sometimes kind of building blocks you need to be able to do that. And so just doing that all year probably isn't going to be necessarily the best recipe for becoming really good at doing that. There's definitely a strength acquisition side, there's a skill acquisition, there's a muscle endurance component, and you can do a lot of that with a lower risk of injury doing, let's say you're in the gym for, I don't know, 90 minutes a day. So you kind of spend, well, let's spend my time according to what my goals are. So it's like, let's spend, 45 minutes on strength work, primarily leg strength. So squats, deadlifts, maybe some cleans, but you're not doing touch and go. Hopefully, like, you're keeping good form. So injury risk is fairly low. And then you're doing like skill acquisition and gymnastics, which you can do with obviously like, lower reps and at low intensity. So you're doing it perfectly. And then you're doing lots of strict work, because if you can do a lot of strict pull-ups, you're probably going to be able to do a lot of butterflies. And then you can do some cardio, but that cardio doesn't have to be a crazy CrossFit workout. That cardio can be, like pushing a sled, going for a run, and rowing. And, if you do intervals of pushing a sled, burpees are pretty, low impact, and rowing, like, that's a lot like CrossFit, but it's not like touch and go barbells and kipping chest bars, which are just going to be harder on your joints and your low back and your shoulders and stuff. So yeah, absolutely, you can cut that out, but you have to bring it back. You got to bring it back, because that's what the sport is, and so you got to be ready for that high level intensity, closer to a competition. This is from Ponga3, same guy. If in workouts I can't create transitions to 5 to 7 seconds between movements, or breasting, I guess, in a larger set of, let's say, pull-ups, do I need to scale down the load and slow my pace regardless of the movements and combination of them? I mean, no. That's a real. I'm going to try and make this answer short, because I could talk about this for 20 minutes. You just have to remember, like, what are your goals? And so, like, closer to a competition, if you're going to an event where you're a little out of your depth, like, let's say you're not that good at muscle ups or heavy cleans, but there's probably going to be these like things you're not good at. Then you have to practice those things in workout scenarios, and in doing so, you're going to be taking big breaks because you're not good enough at them yet to keep those short transitions. So in that specific scenario, then of course you can't just expect to just do these 5 to 7 second transitions. Obviously, to keep up intensity, to keep up the heart rate, to simulate what it could be like when you are good. I mean, I say this to people usually at the CrossFit Games. If someone wins a workout, they're not resting, right? There's very little. There's no more than 5 to 7 seconds of rest. Probably one of the few exceptions to that is going to be like heavy DT and the thruster wall walk workout, because they weren't over programmed, but those were like a really brutal stimulus, and people were taking big breaks and still finishing high, such as myself. Looking at all the male winners in recent times, do you think the game still favors a certain body type? No. I mean, I have to believe that it doesn't, because I'm not that certain body type. But I don't think so. I mean, you look at the top like 10 men at the games, and there's some tall boys in there. And just because someone hasn't won that's tall in recent times doesn't mean it's not possible. I mean, I believe I can win the games. And let's say I win the games 2 years in a row, is all of a sudden, is that the ideal male body type for CrossFit? It's like, probably not, but I did it anyway. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think it's I don't think you can be 5 foot flat, and you probably can't be 7 feet to win the CrossFit Games. But I think pretty much anywhere in the realm in between there, you can probably do really well. And if you can do really well, then why can't you win? How do you balance easy aerobic work with the amount of high intensity you do during workouts? I guess I kind of answered that already. Sorry, Nate Mason. Hopefully I kind of answered your question. Just depends on your goals, right? You just have to kind of create a plan, say like, where do I want to be? What do I want to compete at? And then once I know that, like, kind of work backwards. And if, getting generally fitter is a big part of that, like, conditioning piece, then, those need to be in there. But if it's like, man, it's all strength, it's gymnastics, that sort of thing, obviously being fit is going to help with your training volume, your ability to handle that volume. I just got this question on here, so I might as well answer. People asked about Rogue Invitational, Dubai. I'm not competing at the Rogue Invitational. Just doesn't fit in with my goals and my, some things going on in personal life with scheduling and stuff. So wish everyone there the best of luck. I'll be tuning in and watching. Wish I could be there. I mean, obviously, it's a great event. Nothing but great things to say. It's not. Yeah. I wish I could be there, but it just can't do it all. And yeah, definitely still tune in. Definitely still buy tickets if you can. I was just kind of holding off on announcing it. Just wanted to be super sure that I wasn't competing. And also, I guess a little bit, I wanted people to buy tickets. So, I mean, if I was the draw card and someone's like, oh, Brent might go, and they bought tickets, then sorry, but also good for Rogue. I want Rogue to do well, and I want all the events to do well. As far as, Dubai and other events, I'm not sure yet, but I'll probably let you know kind of last minute, just like Dubai, just like Rogue, plus or minus. But I hope to do some competitions, soon. Love competing, but also there's obviously a balance too of, you can't compete every week, right? Or every month. And then it's like, well, what is the right amount based on what my goals are, whether that's, it's just a bunch of factors and personal stuff too. So, what was the transition between life as an accountant? So for those of you who don't know, I was a full-time accountant and I made the CrossFit Games 3 times while I was still working full-time. It was a flexible job, so I could change my hours, but I was still in the office 40 hours a week. But, I was at like a standing desk and a lot of online stuff, so I could, work from home a little bit if I needed to. But I was basically in the office 40 hours a week, and I'd be answering emails up to 2 days before the CrossFit Games started. But I like doing it. I love the job. Cool tech company, Straw House Inc. Transition, and then I went full-time athlete. I guess that was 2 years ago now, 3 years ago. It was challenging. I think all of a sudden the time that I thought I would have had freed up because I wasn't working just was filled immediately with stuff, training and otherwise. And it didn't feel, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have so much free time. And it didn't feel like that at all. If anything, the first year was stressful, put kind of more pressure on myself. I was able to train more, and I kind of did, which, wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, it wasn't easy. I was definitely more stressed, I would say, for that first year. And yeah, I think it's kind of nice having that, I go to work and it's just, you shut off that CrossFit brain. Oh, training went well today. Yep. And then you're in work and you're not like hyper analyzing every little detail on what you're going to do next. You're just, in a way I was recovering, I was just in an air conditioned office, standing, sitting, kind of kneeling on a funky little kneel chair thing. Evie Kevish on YouTube says, what up? That reminds me of Sunny. What time do you go to bed and wake up? Are you a morning person? How do you stay disciplined? Yeah, I've always been a morning person. I was just talking to someone about that recently. I had a paper route growing up. When I was a competitive swimmer in the summers, we'd have early swimming practices. So, I'd be getting up at, I don't even know, 5 a.m., quickly delivering the papers and then immediately biking or driving to a swimming practice. This is when I was 15, 16, 14 even. And then coming home and eating. So, I've always been kind of a morning person. I don't know if it's by nature or by design. And so I've always been used to sort of getting up and training in the morning and just starting my day that way. And there was a time when I was saving for a university where I would get up really early, train for an hour, and then I had a job that started pretty early as well. And so it was just like, and that was when I didn't really have anything to train for. I was doing what I kind of thought was CrossFit in like 2010, 2011. And I just wanted to be better at volleyball, kind of prepare to play some beach volleyball in Australia. So I'd get up and I'd trying to learn how to do power cleans, and I was doing burpees, and I was just doing lots of plyo work. And how do I stay disciplined? Discipline's a good word. Some people say motivated, and it's not really motivated. I mean, a lot of days I don't feel like doing, anything. It's just discipline, right? It's just, training to me, since I've been an athlete my whole life. I was a volleyball player and a swimmer, and this is obviously the highest level athlete I've ever been, but you didn't miss practice, right? When I was in junior high and high school and swimming, like it wasn't a question of, oh, are you going to come to practice today? It's like, no, you made practice. You had a commitment to your team. And even as a swimmer, I wasn't on a team, but we went to every practice, my sister and I guess that was just what our parents instilled in us. And so, when I moved into CrossFit, and, have a coach or a program, it's like, you just show up, like it's not a question. And then you get going. And then once you're there, it's like, you're going to do the thing. Right. And for me, whenever I'm doing something, I give it 100%. So like when I had really good volleyball coaches in high school, and it's like, and there was a culture of that amongst the older athletes in the program, that like, hey, when we're doing drills, like, you're running as hard as you can, you're focused, we weren't goofing around, but we were having a great time, and then we won games because of it. So yeah, it's never, if I'm in the gym, I'm going to do everything I can to maximize that experience. Like I'm not going to just not try because I'm there, right? And then I'm going to be there because it's not a choice. It's it's a requirement. It's like showing up to work. And even though obviously training now is my work, but when it wasn't, it still felt like it, but not in a bad way. Why don't you like or struggle with online competition? Anything you can publicly answer. Just a curious fan. Thanks, Sid Sabness. That's a well-worded question. I appreciate that. I kind of mentioned it before. I don't dislike online competitions. I prefer in-person competitions, and I think everyone does. Even the people that maybe do better in online competitions, I think they'd still prefer to compete in person. It's just like, you know, it's more fun, and there's the race element, the crowd, and that's what you train for, right? That's the sport, in my opinion. And struggle, I mean, I kind of mentioned it before, not for lack of trying, you know, not for lack of training for it. I think part of it is definitely the programming, you know, and I'm still going to just, you know, I need to get better and realistic. You know, I guess if you put it simply, if you look at my workout results at in-person competitions, live competitions, regionals, games historically, and you look at the events that are my best finishes and my worst finish, there's outliers, of course. But usually my worst finishes are workouts you're like, oh, that kind of looks like an open workout. Yeah. And then the workouts I do well in that are like 20-foot rope climbs and like sandbag cleans, you're like, oh, well, you can't really do that in the open. I think that's part of it. I think there's other aspects of it where I think it's people not competing as well in person, and I'm just like, you know, 100% all the time. And I think some people, maybe they don't realize it, but they're competing at 80% at, you know, an in-person event for various reasons. But yeah, I like doing online stuff. I think it's fun. It's a necessary evil as far as the sport's concerned for certain aspects of qualification, for sure. And I mean, what's cool about our sport is everyone can compete, right? Like everyone can join in, and you know, everyone can do the open for whatever, $20. And you know, you could go open semis games, you know, 0 to hero, be at the highest stage of competition like that. And you can't say that about many sports, or really, I don't know, any other sports. Like you can't just, you know, show up to a pool. I guess you could show up to a pool and say, hey, I want to try out for the team. They'd be like, really? And then you swim, and they're like, oh, I guess you're on the team. That was really fast. And you go to the Olympics within a year, presumably. But anyway, so it's a good part about the sport, but you know, necessary evil. Heyo, someone says, by the way, I'm writing my professor project programming for tomorrow on my whiteboard right now. Hell yeah, ED, good to hear it. What are the most important things you found in your diet to reduce inflammation? That's a good question. I mean, just like processed food, I realize that's like a strange blanket statement. Honestly, the biggest thing is eating out. You don't know what they put in the food, but it seems like, you know, if I just eat out, even if it's kind of like we go to like a nice restaurant and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get the steak and potatoes with veggies. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm just like all puffy after. I'm like, was there just a ridiculous amount of salt in there, or was it oil? I don't know what they put in it. You know, I mean, it tasted good. But even like eating something like quote unquote unhealthy, like, you know, we buy bread and cheese and, you know, a burger, we make a burger at home, high fat or whatever, and put on some salt, you know, that makes your stomach upset, but it doesn't seem to have the same inflammatory thing. So honestly, the biggest thing is like eating out, like food where you're not in control of the ingredients. Before the games, a friend told you that 2021 will be your favorite CrossFit games. Do you still feel that way now the games are over? Yeah, I think, yeah, I think as a general statement, yes. I mean, there's definitely moments from every games that I'll cherish. But I was just really proud of a bunch of things. And, you know, there was a culmination of some mistakes, more so mentally, like mental preparations, really small things that I felt I made in a few competitions over the last few years that I feel like I overcame. And I felt like my general demeanor over the course of those 5 days, you know, before, after, during workouts, I feel like I really nailed it this year. And that's something, because that's probably the biggest thing you can control. And in that, there was enjoyment. I think there was an element of, when I thought about enjoying the games, the most fun, I was like, oh, I'm going to stop and smell the roses and really appreciate the experience. And I realized that's not really possible. You know, you have these brief moments where you're like, wow, that's a lot of people when you're in the stadium, but then you have to focus. And what's funny is this year, with the mental kind of stuff I was trying to focus on, I felt as though I was less aware of the fans and the experience than ever. I was more in my own tunnel, but you know, like maybe being aware of like Justin Medeiros in a certain workout, or the person right in front of me on the run, or whatever that is. I was very aware of those like very small details that I wanted to be in my sphere of focus, but like all the other details were just complete blur. You know, didn't hear them, didn't see them, didn't think about them. They didn't occupy any headspace. Which, you know, kind of, when someone asks me like, oh, the games, it's got to be so cool, man. Like it's so crazy. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like every other comp. And they go, no, it's the games, man. And they're kind of like, surely it must not be. And I'm like, no, like, I mean, at least for me, I don't really like, felt the same as in a lot of ways the online semifinals, like the same pressure, or the same as, a mid-level comp with, maybe 10% of the fans. And it kind of, because it's that I'm in that athletic focus zone, the flow state, ideally for most workouts. And when you're in that state, that's kind of what you're striving for. And that's what that's why you're kind of there, because only in those peak moments can you kind of experience that state. And when you're in that state, you don't notice anything else. And so that state is kind of you can read about the flow state or the zone. I think there's a book, what's a good one, like The Rise of Superman, if you want to get into that. It's a longer book than it needs to be, but it gets to the point if you keep reading it. And, you get to that, for me, it's like, well, I get there because I've been prepping and thinking about it for a year or more, and I'm there against the best people. And so because it means something, gives it that sensation. It's not it could be no fans, and I think it would kind of be a similar sensation. I guess it'd be interesting to ask the people that competed at the ranch for 5 days. It would have been different, but at the same time, the same. Opposite the freestanding handstand pushups, will save, bring it back next year. I'm assuming Dave. Will you see it again in other events? Did you like the way it was programmed? Freestanding handstand pushups. I try. It's funny, over the years, I don't really give too much public criticism, feedback on the game's programming. It just doesn't really do me any favors for a bunch of reasons. I think it's just, and it helps me mentally just to, kind of approach this competing for the sport in a way that gives me the best chance of success. There's definitely an element of me that's hyper analytical and wants to really dive into those things, and I kind of have to compartmentalize that. So the athlete in me isn't questioning, oh, why are we doing this? But to answer the question, part of the question, will it be back? I don't know about next year, but I can almost guarantee that or a slight variation of that will be back within the next, let's call it 5 years. In the same way, like the kayak, I'm sure the kayak or something like the kayak will be back within the next, let's call it 5 years. Whether it's that exact same kayak or that exact same freestanding handstand pushup rule, I don't know. But I'm sure the freestanding handstand pushup will be back, at least in that competition or another one, in a similar or slightly different fashion. Do you feel that, this is from Colby, do you feel being a taller athlete has worked against in CrossFit as opposed to when you played volleyball? It's funny, in volleyball, I wasn't tall enough, so like I was 6'2", and in high school I was, one of the taller, everyone was about 6'2" on my team, really. And so I played middle, which is like the post position, if you were basketball, like what Shaq would play. And then, I got to college and I was too short for that. So then I had to develop into a higher skilled player with a different set of skills. And, I only played college for 2 years, and, that wasn't enough time for me to acquire those skills. Not to say 5 years would have been either. Definitely not to like play at any level comparable to the level I am at as a CrossFitter. As far as height, I mean, yeah, statistically speaking, like I've been the tallest guy at the games the last 6 years. So that has to say something, that if there's no one taller than me, then I'm an outlier, I guess, but I'm still a front runner. So it's advantageous in certain aspects, certain movements. And it kind of just depends on the competition, right? If the competition is just pull-ups, push-ups, and lightweight cycling of like a barbell or a dumbbell, then yeah, it's probably going to be a disadvantage. But like the movements you listed, wall balls, rowing, then rope climbs, running potentially, depending on a bunch of factors, but kind of depends. All right, I'm going to answer a few other questions here. I'm going to skip through to the ones that I felt people would gain the most from. Where were your weightlifting numbers when you did your first regional competition? So I started CrossFit in April of 2012. My first regional competition was basically 1 year later, so May 2013. This was the Australia Regional. You can look up my results on games.crossfit.com if you want to. That's the Australia Regional 2013. And so I don't know exactly at that competition what they were at, because we weren't really testing them, but I know a few months prior, so January 2013, I've been doing CrossFit for 8 months. And I could snatch 100 kilograms, which is 225 pounds, 220 pounds. And I could clean and jerk 125 kilograms. I could jerk from the blocks 140 kilograms. So that's 308. And then my clean was 275. Now, at that time, I was lucky to be just ahead of the strength requirement to qualify. So, there were 5 open workouts that qualified me to regionals, and 4 of them weren't very heavy. And the one that was heavy was like this ascending ladders, and it was 20 minutes or 18 minutes of burpees and ascending snatches. So snatches were technically my best lift, and I could, repeat them. And so I got a good enough score there, pretty good score. And then good enough scores and everything else. I came I think 8th in Australia in the open. And then I went to regionals and I came, now I'm forgetting, 6th, 5th, 6th. We'll say 6th. We'll go lower just to be safe. So I gained 6th at regionals my first year. And again, at that competition, the 1 rep max was a 3 rep max overhead squat. So that was a good movement for me, really solid shoulders, obviously the jerk being like way heavier than my clean. And then the last workout had some heavy squat cleans, which I struggled with. I think that was my worst score of the weekend. It dropped me from 4th to 6th. And so it's kind of like, it was kind of like a Haley Adams situation, to give some recent context, where, if it was thrusters at 95 pounds and some clean and jerks at 135 pounds, I could kind of hang with the best of them at that time. Not like with the best of them, but, I was probably the 100th best CrossFitter in the world at that point, based on my regional scores. It's approximate. And so 40 made the game. So I was still kind of like, within sight of, guys that were better than me. But, when I first started, really after only a few months of doing CrossFit, like I did Karen unbroken, and I guess would have been about a 5-minute Karen, just under maybe. I had a really good Helen time. It was unbroken, and I don't remember what exactly it was, but it was fast. It was like 7:20 or something. Really good. So stuff like that. Like, I was kind of like a Haley Adams type, and I've always been able to stay just ahead, or sometimes further ahead of the strength requirement of the sport. That's just sort of continually I've been able to improve enough to get better and better scores, but often those are still my worst scores at competitions at times. So yeah, that's kind of where I started, and I was able to still make regionals. Obviously, those numbers now, if those were your lifting numbers, you probably wouldn't be able to qualify for a semifinal, but that depends on what the workouts are in the open and the quarterfinals. This year with the 1 rep max front squat, in North America, in order to make it to a semi, you had to do a 4 rep max front squat of, I believe, 330 pounds. And if you did 325 and won every other workout, you would not have made quarterfinals, because of that was sort of the strength bar. You don't know that until it's all over and you can see those results. But yeah, so kind of, I guess, in that same vein, Bernie TY says, how do you steadily put on muscle while training at the volume you do? Maybe I don't do as much volume as you think, but a lot of the volume I do, I guess, puts on muscle. I'm doing heavy squats. I'm doing a lot of upper body pressing and pulling. That isn't quite hypertrophy like a bodybuilder would do, but, in a way it is. Obviously, with the conditioning I do, there is, you're going to waste away, I guess, a little bit, theoretically, but I'm doing a lot of strength work, and I am steadily putting on muscle, but it's a small amount. I think it's funny, this year there seemed to be more than any other year this, like, oh wow, look how big Brent is, and I am bigger now, muscular wise, than I have ever been. However, I mean, if you look at you can go to my website, brentfikowski.com, and there's a thing there with, I was just looking at this recently, so I'm thinking of it. Selfless or a shameless plug there. And, you can look at photos from 2016, and, I'm like finishing a workout, flexing and celebrating. And then I put up the photo of me at the games this year, shirtless running, and I was putting them side by side. And I'm like, I don't know, they look pretty similar. Like, don't get me wrong, I've put on, muscle since then. But, it's 1 to 2 pounds a year, and that's been 9 years of training. First game's 6 now, 7. Your picture seems to be asking us, are we not entertained? But does anyone ask you if you're not entertained? If you're entertained? No one does. No, they never do. Is Fikowski a Russian name? No, it's Polish. Can I do a garage gym tour? Not right now, but one of these days I should put it on YouTube. So whether that's on this YouTube account or on my Brent Fikowski YouTube account, hopefully sometime soon. How to raise HRV, heart rate variability, reduce stress, which is obviously this, like, how do you do that? Well, just like try not to be stressed. Increase your fitness, and then I mean, if you're looking at your HRV after you sleep, just improve your sleep hygiene, and just Google it, like sleep hygiene. Obviously, like cold room, dark room, quiet room, calm mind before bed. Those are the big ones: cold room, cool room, dark room, quiet room. How important is mobility work if you are not a professional athlete? How much to do and when? Before, after, workout, rest day? Depends on the person, right? Depends on your goals. If you're super flexible and stuff, then maybe not as much. If you're not trying to compete in CrossFit, I mean, theoretically, your training could be mobility work. You know, you could be doing stuff like if you could be doing movements that are building strength, but also improving flexibility, right? You could be doing, I mean, even squatting really deep with moderate weights is going to improve your flexibility. But as far as assuming you're just like, I'm doing CrossFit workouts and I need to get more mobile, just pick a goal, right? Like pick, I want to get my overhead position better and I want to be able to touch the floor with a flat back, something like that. Find a few exercises, whether that's through a physio or website or whatever, that you believe are going to help you reach that goal. And then just stay committed to it, right? Do it every day or before every training session or after every training session. Make it a kind of a non-negotiable. Don't set so much of a goal that you're trying to do 100 things and you're never going to do one of them. Just be like, all right, shoulder flexibility, touch the floor, next 30 days, every day, 5 minutes a day, something like that, even 10 minutes a day. It can add up. Have you ever done some kind of combat sport? I did Taekwondo when I was young. I think only up until grade 7, something like that. Yeah, I mean, they're great. I don't plan on doing any more contact sports just from like a longevity standpoint. I mean, I like watching them, but I don't really have any personal interest. Someone said, "Oh, Brent, you should do MMA. Like, you have a long reach. Like, I have long arms." And I'm like, man, I'm 220 pounds. Like, have you seen the guys in the MMA that are 220 pounds? Those guys are monsters. Like, I'm a big guy, but like a lot of the weight is in my legs, like my quads, and that doesn't really. I don't know. What am I going to kick a little harder? And also not having a background in combat sports, like, those guys like are very used to being contacted, and that's not really like my my background. And I just I know where I belong, right? A lot of people are obviously doing the boxing thing now. That wasn't what this question was. I'm not going to like say I'll never do a boxing match, but at this point it doesn't really interest me. But best $100 or less purchase, and why? Probably anything to improve your sleep quality. You can improve your sleep quality with a face mask or blackout curtains, or some way to cool your room or something like that. And if you can do something to improve your sleep quality, your quality of life will improve. If someone has been going to the gym pretty regularly, looking to compete in the games, what would you recommend? Wouldn't set the goal yet of competing at the CrossFit Games. I would just set the goal of competing, so whether that's the Open, I mean, the Opens, I would still do the Open, but, I'd find a local competition, right? Like some gym that's holding a throwdown, like Saturday, Sunday, a couple workouts, and get in there and just see if you enjoy it, right? See if you enjoy competing, because if that's what you're striving for, you want to make sure that the thing that you're going to experience is enjoyable for you. And then if you're like, man, that was pretty fun, then the process of getting better at that is a different experience entirely. And so, I mean, you can sign up for the Professor Project, selfless plug again, or shameless plug, not selfless, very selfish. Like I have a lot of videos on there talking about like competing, right, and training and what that looks like. And really, it's just, competing a few times, or really, it's like, okay, let's say you want to go to semifinals, because in order to get the games, you have to go to semifinals. So look at the guys that made semifinals, their scores in the online Open and quarterfinals, and do those workouts next week if you want to. Do a few of them, compare your scores, see how far off you are, and then make a plan to get better at those things that held you back from getting better scores, right? So maybe it's like, oh man, my front squat sucks. It's like, well, get a squat program. Or man, I can't do a muscle up. It's like, well, got to learn how to do a muscle up. Let's figure that out. Trainingweakness.com. Okay, that's the last plug. So it's really just that. It's like, just start chipping away at those things and put as much time into as you can. Obviously, like, dial in the nutrition, pay for a coach if you can, go get more massages, all those things. But really, a lot of that's just gonna have to come from you. You're gonna have to make those plans, make those dedication, make that sacrifice, and you have to enjoy that, right? If I mean, I knew someone who was kind of interested in CrossFit, who had the capability of making regionals. This was years ago. And they're like, oh, I think I want to. And I'm like, I know you don't, because I know how much you love camping and fishing and hanging out with your friends. And every weekend, this guy's like doing stuff. He's like having fun. I'm like, man, you have a full-time job. Like, if you want to make regionals, every weekend you're in the gym, because I know what it takes to go from about where you are to where, you know, I am, or someone who makes regionals, and that's what it's going to take. You know, you can't just keep doing those things on the weekend and just train, you know, an hour a day, Monday to Friday. It's like you're just not going to get good enough. So there's just more time needs to be taken. And I knew how he eats. I'm like, you don't eat bad, but you don't eat great. And it's like, that's just one more piece of the puzzle that, you know, in order to catch people essentially that you're trying to beat, you know, it's just not going to happen. So, are you as mad as me that you and Pat are not on the new Canadian coin? Yeah. I mean, Canada doesn't, you know, recognize CrossFit as a sport, right? It's a brand. And so, you know, until CrossFit's at the Olympics or something, I don't imagine that anything like that would ever happen. Because I think they've had like skiers or something on the coin at some point, but I don't think it was like an actual dude. It was just like a skier. But yeah, I am very mad. Obviously, that was a joke, and I answered it correctly. What can the Canadian CrossFit community do to get the sport more inclusive? Oh wow, get the sport more inclusive or recognized? Maybe a regional at Whistler or Banff. Yeah, I mean that's a big question, right? You know, it really just comes from, you know, just more, you know, grassroots, right? Like just like more competitions, finding a way for competitions to operate, have lots of people signing up, which will then increase people wanting to come and watch, you know, friends and family, and then beyond. And then having those events essentially be profitable, right? Because you know, there have been a lot of cool events in Canada over the last, you know, 6-7 years that I've been here in Canada, and a lot of them have disappeared. And I think, you know, it was a labor of love for a lot of people that organized those events, but you know, the amount of time and effort they put in, it was not worth the money they got out of it as organizers. And so it's like, man, you know, like how I can't expect those people to keep that up. And then for me individually, you know, I have the opportunity to compete a few times a year. And when I do that, I'm going to want to go to a competition that has a lot of prize money, quite frankly, and has, you know, the viewers, and also has the best athletes in the world. The best athletes go where the best prize money is. So, you know, if a small competition kind of started up, you know, I'd like to maybe support it in some way, you know, whether that's maybe just show up and, you know, maybe write a workout or whatever. But for me to compete, you know, it's probably just not going to happen. And so, yeah, it's about like grassroots, getting competitions, getting people fired up to just do those, compete in those, and then kind of grow it from there. Try not to get too like, oh, we need to like go from zero to Wadapalooza like tomorrow at Banff. It's like, nah, not going to happen. Right. One of my favorite things, like animal, food, place. Oh, geez. Oh, wow, there's lots of questions. I'm never going to get through all these. I'm so sorry. I like music, big music fan. I have a record collection, so that's kind of something that maybe not everyone knows about me. Yeah. So yeah, I like music. Right now I've been listening to the Jungle Giants, their new album called, oh, now I'm forgetting. I want to say it's 70 or 11, but yeah, I don't know. It's not usually what I might listen to, but I just can't get those songs out of my head. Do you ever see CrossFit being taught in schools? Like maybe. I mean, you can't. I don't know if you can really call it CrossFit because then they'd have to pay for that, right? It is a brand, but you know, I mean, more physical fitness. I was just talking to my dad recently. He went to a small rural school, and they're just getting a gym put in, like a weight room type gym. You know, little small school in a rural town in Saskatchewan, Canada. And so it's like, you know, that's a sign that, you know, weight training is becoming way more popular. Like I did weight train a bit in kind of high school, middle school for swimming, but never for volleyball. We never really like emphasized that. I think that's obviously more, and that's kind of what CrossFit is cross training, right? So I think you'll see more and more of that. Oh, do I see it taught in schools as a sport? Probably not anytime soon. I don't really know if that's where CrossFit should try to go either, in my opinion. I'm not sure if it's like, yeah, I think there needs to be like a better understanding of the, you know, teenagers in that type of sport. Like, I think it's fine for teenage athletes to lift weights and so on, but you know, yeah, I don't know. It's a longer conversation. It's not something I'm educated enough about to really comment on, but I'm not sure if that's like that should be. I don't think that should be a goal, I guess, is maybe my thing. I'd like most teenage athletes to try team sports, you know, and be like me, and then go to CrossFit when that fails. No. But yeah, I don't know. That's all I really know. Someone's starting. How can I measure progress? How much time until I can do a bar muscle up? Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I don't know. I don't know that. Just keep at it. There's, I don't know. Like, there's it just, I don't know enough about you to say it could be a week. It could be 10 years. Hopefully not 10 years, sir. But I mean, all I know is your name, Lewis, and you have a profile picture. You've got like a nice, your hair looks good. So I don't know. But just keep at it, right? I mean, if you're doing the right things, if you're practicing drills, you're doing strict pull-ups, obviously there could be a weight loss component in that. It's going to be hard to do a bar muscle up if you weigh a lot potentially. So just keep doing pull-ups, keep doing dips, keep training, keep doing drills, and eventually it should come. Do you think they should do a cross-gender event at the games? Top male, female scored mixed with lower females, some type of team or an all-star event? I mean, they kind of did that for the CrossFit Invitational, which was like Team Canada versus Team Europe. I think there's some cool opportunities for that, for there to be like they do this for beach volleyball sometimes, like a king of the beach, where let's say you take the best 12 males in the sport or 12 males at this competition and you switch partners, because 2-on-2. So you do like, all right, athlete A and C play together against D and F, and then D plays with C against J and K, and you just kind of mix it up, and then whoever wins the most amount of games at the end of the weekend as an individual with switching partners, switching opponents, is crowned the champion. So you could do stuff like that, especially with CrossFit, because the male and female athletes are, I mean, we can go toe to toe in the body weight stuff really, and the running. And it's really just some of the machine work, and then the weights is usually about 70%. And some of the machines, it's 70% of the calories or meters, and then it's pretty much toe to toe. So it's pretty easy to kind of mix and match those. You could do male versus female, male female pairs. I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to see that at a high level event as like a showcase. For big guys, your wall walks are amazing. What was your training approach to get that good? Very beginning of this, I mentioned my split jerk's really good, and that's just because I have good overhead flexibility and stability and strength. It's just something, as soon as I started CrossFit, I had. Just really solid right here. I mean, so that's it. You'll never get it. No, I'm kidding. And so when they announced wall walks in the open, I'd never done them, and then I got a really good score, and I just got really good overhead position. And so if you don't have that, the technique of a wall walk, I mean, you can watch me do it. There's not much to it. Watch, everyone do them, and everyone's going to do them a little different. But really, it's just about that overhead stability. And that's just lots of, like kind of like crossover symmetry, scapjack, that kind of stuff, right? Like just, ensuring you have the flexibility and then the stability, and just continue to train that and improve that. You can roll and smash and scrape your pecs and your lats and your teres and all that kind of teres major, teres minor, all that kind of stuff. Terry's middle. I mean, it's really just about overhead flexibility and then strength in that flexibility range. How do I build shoulder strength? I get tired when I do gymnastics movements. I just keep at it. You need to keep the quality high. So like, don't do movements that are of poor quality. You'll run into injuries, and then you'll just get good at doing things poorly. But I mean, just keep at it, keep doing push-ups, keep doing pull-ups, keep doing handstand push-ups, or dumbbell strict press if you, can't do a lot of strict handstand push-ups, presumably. I like you had the problems with strict handstand push-ups. How did you manage that to combine shoulder press work and handstand push-up work within your training plan? So if you look at, you compartmentalize your body into, let's say, body parts. A huge priority for essentially my upper body to arm was handstand push-up strength and ability to do handstand push-ups. And so that came first, right? Like when building the plan of, let's say, a 3-month plan for my training, like that's like the first thing that's added in. Basically, like, what can we do to get my handstand push-ups better? And so it's a lot of, dumbbell strict press and barbell strict press and handstand push-ups and handstand holds and isometric, whatever, just you name it. And then you're like, okay, what can we realistically do with Brent's shoulders in that 3-month period that won't injure him? And so, I wasn't doing a lot of workouts, or really any workouts with, push press and push jerk and overhead walking lunges, because it's like, oh, I'm doing so much already like that. I'm not going to do any more. So, my my barbell push press or my barbell split jerk, just, we didn't work on that, right? Because it's like, well, the handstand push-ups need work. That's the priority. And so you kind of have to take out things. And, we did some thrusters, but you still have to kind of be careful because that's the same motion, right? So, you have to create a very specific kind of handstand push-up focused plan. And then it's like, well, what else can we fit in? And that's like, it's really about prioritizing your training. I've kind of talked about that a bit, but that's kind of what that ends up looking like is you start making compromises and you start, not doing things because it's like, well, we've decided that, I want to prioritize this, this, and this. And you build the training plan. You're like, oh, not a lot of time left. I can't just train 10 hours a day. Can't just squat, a million reps for 1,000 pounds every single day. So I guess I just can't do that thing very often. Do you have any advice on when to do accessory work? Should be extension of what WOD was done or a day dedicated to it? You can do some every day, like usually the last thing you do in the day. But the accessory work should be specific to a problem you feel you have. And then again, it's just part of that plan, so it's like, oh, I have a really weak upper back. Like, make sure that is in fact the problem, maybe you think you do, but it could be something else. And if so, it's like, oh, I want to do some whatever bent over rows or ring rows. Then, just find a place where that fits in. Let's see. Any other tools you suggest, like scraping sidekick or floss bands? No, those are really good. None come to mind at this exact moment. Sorry. How much sleep did I get when I was working full time? As much as I could, at least 8 hours. That's usually kind of like a goal to shoot for. If you're not getting 8, try to get to 8. And then if you can get more, get more. But 8's usually kind of that, that's like the blanket answer, right? Tips for long athletes: double down on strengths or go for balance. Figure out what you suck at and get better at it, whether you're short, tall, or medium. Top 3 live event workouts that seemed easy when you saw it on paper, but surprised the hell out of you when you competed it. Doesn't happen to me anymore. I know they're all gonna suck. Yeah. Any hero workouts you'd like to do with service personnel or firefighter WOD in full gear? Not really. I've never really thought of doing it in full gear. Maybe one day, but right now my training is focused on trying to win, and I don't perceive that to be something that I would put into my training. But if I did, I suppose I would choose a workout that I felt would be very CrossFit Games-esque if I was wearing a lot of weight. So probably like a little bit of running / jogging, carrying, and then sort of some basic like body weight or like deadlifts. I'm not sure I would do a full hero workout because in gear with a hero workout, you might be going for an hour and a half, which probably wouldn't be a good idea for performance. Comment here, this is a good one. 26 years old, just started CrossFit. I have a lot of power, but don't know if I'm too late to become pro. I'm training 7 to 10 times a week. It's a lot. What do you think? Is it too late? Cry emoji, cry emoji. So I wouldn't focus, like I kind of said to the other person, I wouldn't focus on going pro. I mean, I don't really know I guess what that means would be to be a professional, which would be to make a living off of it. And there's very few athletes that are able to do that. I mean, I was only really able to feel confident that I could go full time and go pro when I'd made the games 3 times and come top 4 3 times in a row. So as far as, I would just try to get better, and just like enjoy competing and ensure that whatever you're doing to get there is a life that you're happy to live, whether that's, a really cheap, stingy life with, a simple job to keep the training a priority, or it's like, hey, I want to, save up, and that means I need to work more, which means I can't train as much, but I'm okay with that. Then that's fine too. But you just have to be very aware of the sacrifices and trade-offs you are making. And sometimes those are financial. Someone's talking about height here again. And if Brent, something, if we normalize for height and weight, our boy Brent would be the fittest on earth. I appreciate that, but that's not how it works. So I don't really believe that at all. How do I maintain good stamina after a meniscus injury? It's impossible for me to do a squat for like 3 months. This is in NABDO. Just make a list of the movements you can do, right? Don't focus on what you can't do. Focus on what you can do. Find any movement you're allowed to do and do those movements. Your squat's probably going to hurt at the end of it, right? It's going to be a lower weight, but injury is a gift, and you can get so much better at a bunch of other things. Maybe you can get way better at handstand push-ups, pull-ups, handstand walks, burp, all these other things, maybe deadlifts. So, try to get in some work that will hopefully maintain, whether it's something with your quads or something with your glutes that can kind of maintain that size, whatever the restrictions of that meniscus injury are. But yeah, or whatever injury, right? It's a shoulder injury. It's like, oh, like what can I do with my shoulder to still keep some muscle mass? But, even if I can't do whatever, kipping chest to bar pull-ups right now, like what else can I do that's kind of similar, something. But then maybe just it's like, well, let's get good at squatting. Let's squat a lot and, set a PR and do that, right? What's your favorite hero WOD and what's your PR time? Probably Tommy V. I did that at regionals in 2015. My time there was 7:51. Tommy V. Look that up. Good one. Can I get a t-shirt online that says your name, except instead it says Fikowski, like with 2 C's. It's not for sale yet, but maybe soon. I answered that one. In your opinion, who's the most underrated athlete you competed against at the games? Probably Lazar this year. Lazar Jukic. I think he's going to do great in this sport in years to come. So keep an eye on him. Came 9th this year, I believe. I don't compete against her, but Kristen Holta. She's had a very consistent, illustrious career. She's maybe not as household namey as some of the other female male athletes, but Kristen Holta, I think seems as though she's retired. She said, but she's going to Rogue, so no one knows how to retire in this sport. Matt knows how to retire. Matt Frazier, he pulled the chute and he's like, I don't compete anymore. Training changed, and that'll be me too. I mean, I definitely not. When I'm done, I'm done. But I'll still train, but it won't look like training looks now. So yeah, Kristen Holta, and it's easy to say this now, but like 2.5 years ago, I competed against Justin Medeiros. So he would have only been 20 years old at that point at the Granite Games in 2019 in June. And for a while in the competition, for most of the competition, he was beating me. And then I ended up beating him kind of near the end there. So he just missed out on his CrossFit Games. But I remember thinking like, oh, that guy's not going anywhere. Like that guy's legit. He won a workout, a really tough workout that was, just like very CrossFit-esque. And obviously has like the right build for it. And I'm like, oh, obviously he's got what it takes. And so I remember telling some people that, and I even told someone who knew someone who worked for a brand, and I was like, if you want to get in on the ground level, it could be a cheap pickup. And they didn't listen to me, or maybe the word didn't get passed through. But what's your macros distribution? When this video goes permanent, I'll just post a link to a blog post of my some food stuff. It pretty much covers it. Okay. You know what? I got one here. So, all right. This one's from Reddit. So as you kind of notice, I tend to talk fast, over talk, put humor in to my answers here. And so with this kind of question, I know people will kind of hyperanalyze, result, whatever I say, facial expression. So I'm going to do my best to be brief and then move on to another question. And inevitably, I'm going to be asked more of these types of questions in the coming year. It might catch me off guard, so I might as well practice now. So I'm here on Reddit. And will any of the Redditors here who constantly accuse all games athletes of being on performance-enhancing drugs have the balls to accuse him directly of this? And then all the responses are pretty funny. So, I mean, how to answer this concisely? Like, I've been a clean athlete my whole life. I intend to be a clean athlete, for the rest of my life, right? I've always felt that way, and I could go on a list of reasons to try to prove to people why or how, or show you pictures or show you progress or lack of progress in my training or whatever, explain to you volume or whatever that is, and there's going to be people that don't believe me. And I was trying to think of a really good analogy for this. I was talking to my friend, an old friend of mine, about how many guys do you think are doing drugs in the sport? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I try not to think about it. I haven't watched the Icarus documentary because it's I don't really want to know how hard or how easy it is to do drugs and their benefits. It's I don't want to be on the starting line. If I was in a race car, knowing or thinking that someone has some souped up race car that is unbeatable or faster or lighter or has some NOS exhaust thing that I can't compete against. So I just don't really know that much about that, and I intentionally don't know much about that. I just don't spend my time reading or looking up videos on that topic. And so my analogy to him, trying to think of a good analogy, is it's like if you were a politician, you don't go around, you don't hear politicians say at the end of every speech, and by the way, I don't take bribes and I'm not corrupt. Thank you, everyone. Because it's like, you're like, oh, why did he bring that up? Like, because there's certain people you say like, oh, do you think federal politicians take bribes and are corrupt? And there's going to be people that say, yeah, they all are. Some people say, oh, maybe some. Some people say, no, I like to think that they do it, because it's a good job and they want to make the country a better place. And it's like they're all going to say that they don't take bribes and that they're not corrupt, right? And I realize that me saying that or giving examples is not going to change some people's mind, and that's why I don't like entertain a lot of those questions, or really, the people that need to know in my life have the opinion of me that that I don't, and that's what I care about. My close friends and family. And it's it's like I can't just go around trying to argue with people about that, especially online, or in person, I guess, for that matter. But no one's ever brought it up to me in person, really, that I can think of, at least no strangers. It's not, I've never seen anyone do drugs. No competitors ever like asked me like, hey, like any of that kind of like bathroom, whatever, like secret talk or anything. But I mean, even growing up, like, you remember when you're in like elementary school or something, like people will offer you drugs. It's like I was never really in situations where people offered me drugs. Like maybe like once or twice someone offered me to smoke some marijuana. I'm like, no, I'm good. And they're like, okay. That was kind of it. So I don't know. I mean, that's really it. I don't know. There's not much else to say about it. Obviously, I'll have to kind of prepare some, more concise answers for that, as Ricky Gerard is off his 4-year suspension. And I don't really have much to say about that right now. But I mean, I imagine I'll have to I just haven't really thought about it. It's not really like, I don't think that much about my competitors really throughout the year intentionally. Like I don't intentionally avoid following them on Instagram, because it's like, I don't need to know what they're doing. But obviously, leading up to a competition, I think a little more about my competitors, and I could be competing against Ricky. And so, I guess I'll have to think about him a little more then. And then in regards to, my thoughts on the drug ban or policy, whatever. As far as like drug-free sport, I believe in drug-free sport. But honestly, a lot of my efforts as far as improving the sport, like I'm an advocate for drug-free sport. But like I kind of said about the politician thing, it's like, I'm not going to like wave that flag all the time, because it's just like, what is this guy trying to hide? Like, who is he trying to compensate for something here? So a lot of my time, like I'm going to try and do some more stuff with the PFA this year on stuff I feel I can have more of an impact in, which is, improving the safety and the fairness of competitions and consistency and rules. And that stuff is presumably, although it takes some time, is free. Like those improvements to competitions are free. Like a list of, required or not required, like equipment or apparel or something like that for athletes, to help them prepare adequately for their competition, so they know what, size, I don't know, headphones or whatever they can wear, along with, maybe more rules and regulations in regards to programming, again, to help athletes prepare and for safety as well. Like, do you want to go to a competition that has like rebounding pistol jumps for 300 reps with a weight vest? It's like, I don't, but right now there's nothing to say a competition won't do that, other than hopefully they won't. So that's kind of where I put my energy. And I don't really think there's anything else to say about that. I said it was going to be concise, but oh no. Wow. Snatches were your best lift then? Dang, legit, man. Oh, I thought this person was chirping me for not having a great snatch this year. I mean, I still placed fourth, but I didn't snatch as much this year. I hit 285, which was probably one of my bigger frustrations, but probably my proudest moment at the games, this isn't a question, but I'm just going to say it anyway, was the tiebreak at 225 right after that. That was probably the most exciting moment of the games for me this year, and one of, if not the most exciting moments of the games for me ever, was winning that tiebreak. I think what was cool about it is, you go into that event, you're just focusing on the lifts, right? You don't really put a lot of thought into the tiebreak. And then immediately you're sort of thrust into this tiebreak with only a few seconds to sort of prepare yourself for that. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of playing volleyball, where you don't go into the game visualizing yourself like serving the game-winning point, if that makes sense. But all of a sudden you're in that situation, you have that brief couple seconds as you go back to the line, you're like, well, like this is really important. And that's kind of what it felt like. You know, I missed that snatch, and there's this disappointment, like, oh man, like what if, like 285, like that, I thought I would have hit way more than that. Like that's not what the plan was. What the hell? And then I looked over 225, and I'm like, I could kind of hear my coaches like, this is really important. Like if you want to win the CrossFit Games, which at that point it was still within reach, especially not knowing the events the next day. It's like you got to win. Like, you know, you have to go for it. You have to beat these three other guys. And they're all good snatchers at that point, especially Saxon. He's really fast, powerful guy. And so there's just this kind of brief moment to like psych myself up and, you know that the pressure's on and just say like, let's be here. Like you have to really go for it. And so like, you know, feeling that pressure, putting that pressure on internally and knowing it was there externally, you know, there's potentially a 30 or 40 point swing with that many guys, something, anyway, a lot of points. And so winning that for me was really cool. Compared to your rookie games, your event placements have become more consistent. However, you are winning less. Was this a conscious decision? That's a very good question. So yeah, if you look like my first year at the CrossFit Games, I joke with people and I was like, oh, pretty much at my first games, I either came top 5 or bottom 10 in every workout. If you look, it's pretty, you know, it definitely like not intentional per se, but you know, it's an inevitability of the training to a certain extent. Like, of course, I want to keep those top 5 finishes. You know, I'd love to have just that many every year. Some of that's definitely luck with the programming. You know, like if you have just this sweet spot of just the right movements and just the right time domain, and then there's this element of like you have to pick a strategy that's a little bit risky. You go, oh, that sounds like tough, but you're like, well, that's somewhat like 10 guys are going to try that strategy. One of them's it's going to work and they're going to win. 5 of them will come, you know, still in the top 10. Another 5 are going to blow up and come about 20th. So if they would have been more conservative, they would have come like, you know, 7th to 15th with a more conservative strategy based on their ability. But they went for a top 5 finish. Hopefully, I mean, listen to that again if you didn't understand it. So it's never been, you know, you never go into a competition like planning, like I'm going to win this many events and come top 5 in this and come 20 and only have 1 loss. But like one of the things I'm the most proud of is my progression in the squat clean, specifically in the last 6 years. I came last place in the squat clean workout in 2016 games, heavy squat cleans. And then this year, there were, you know, I had the heavy squat clean and run with 330 up to 350, and I came 12th out of 40 men. So really proud of that. You know, and that's something I put a lot of time into. You know, and obviously not as much time into the snatch because it was always a good thing. And I just kind of floated in that. I came 3rd in 2017 and this year I came 4th. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, like had I really worked on that snatch, like maybe this year instead of 4th, it could have been, I probably wouldn't have beat Guy, but I might've been able to get 3rd or 2nd, maybe. I mean, you know, still have to do it. That doesn't take anything away from the guys who beat me, but that's kind of just the nature of it. And there's always this give and take because your training time is focused on something, and whatever you work on will probably get better. How much better relative to your peers, you don't always know. Yeah, I'm going to try and answer one more, and then where my battery's going to die here. Another all-in series. Nope, not that I know of. Do I reach out for specific professionals on programming? Yep. How many calories? I'll post that. PR cream, bicarbonate base. I don't know what that is. Should I work on gymnastics now or lose a few kilos first? You can start doing, in gymnastics is upper body pressing and pulling. And so you can start doing it, but you can scale it, right? You can do dumbbell rows or dumbbell press, which is still building shoulder strength. You can do strict pull-ups, but if you can only do 1 or 2, then you need to find a way to scale that so you can get a higher rep range to increase your muscle endurance. You might have to use a lot of bands or have someone, you know, stand on someone's arms as they help lift you up. Sorry, guys. That's it. Love you guys. Thanks for, well, I don't really know you, so I don't really love you, but I do appreciate all of you. All right, I got to get out of here. This thing is going to die. I think I answered most of the questions, but thanks, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'm going to post the link in the here about just some food stuff. And, you know, feel free to, you know, become a member of the Professor Project. That was kind of the whole thing. I didn't really like, I guess I plugged it a bit. But yeah, just check out professorproject.com and, you know, I have programming there. You can follow along with my programming along with a bunch of videos on, you know, suggestions on how to prepare accurately for a competition, how to plan your training, you know, warm up, cool down advice, just a bunch of stuff. And then there's a good community of people, like-minded people that are asking good questions. to kind of like bounce questions in myself. I'm on there too, along with some other coaches I trust are, um, are always doing that. Best kept secret thing in your gym, like Fraser's forearm spinner. I have like one or two really small secrets. If I said them, you'd be like, that's not a secret. Everyone knows that kind of. But it's like, I don't know. Do you really do it though? And you'd be like, no, I don't do it. It's like, well, there you go. But that's why they're secrets. Bye.